All right. It hiccuped again. Hey, we're back on FTM 31. How is everybody? I'm your host, DJ, along with the two legendary ladies. I think we got to take journalists off one because it's full-on team principal now. We're talking about Maddi Patterson. Am I right, Maddi?
It feels like that. Yeah, what a week.
She's been so Maddi landed in Washington. She arranged to meet up with, I believe, Mallory and Lizzie. Was Lizzie there as well?
No, Lizzie wasn't there. We just photoshopped her into all of our photos. So we pretended she was there.
I thought you were kidding about that. But
she wasn't there.
All right. And the MotoAmerica Super Sport, soon to be legend, because of the way she just, I want to say she kicked in Junior Cup and then came up last year, did a couple races after starting in Twins Cup and then doing a couple races up in Super Sport. That is number 31, number 19 for this year, Kayla Yakov. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good. Home for a couple of days, then we start getting really chaotic. So just soaking up the last few days of tough training here at home, and then start getting the roll on for Atlanta and testing.
Yeah, I went to hit class there. I was like, man, I got to work as hard as Kayla today, man. That ball, hitting the ground and stuff, the medicine ball. Anyway, man, there was some big, let me move me down here and the two people that everyone actually wants to see up there. How's that look? All right, awesome. I like those drapes in the background. Did you tell them to put that in the room for you, Maddi?
No, I'm at my friend's house in Butte, Montana. So she is actually in like a heritage house, I think. This house used to belong to like a famous dentist here, a renowned dentist. So I'm just, traveling around seeing all my friends in the US.
Wow. Yeah, and we'll have to ask, before we get into it, Kayla, we just got to ask Maddi. I was really hoping for a Bigfoot experience for you and Simon up in British Columbia. Were there any tree knocks? Was there any, I'll end up sending you an audio clip of what the Bigfoot howl sounds like.
I didn't see any Bigfoot, but we did see bears and goats and birds and all the norm. We went to like a wildlife sanctuary and I cried because there was this little bear. She was hit by a car. She had brain damage. She was so cute, but she would eat from your hand. She was so cute. But BC was just amazing. What a beautiful place that is in the world.
I tell you, that's on my bucket list, of places I love. So, Kayla, have you been up there at all when you were with your motorcycle travels, or?
To Montana?
No, to British Columbia.
Oh, British Columbia? No, I haven't.
It's beautiful. You got to go. Take a weekend. It's the most amazing place. It's blue. Everything is actually blue. The air is blue. It's stunning.
That's cool. Yeah.
I love forest is my happy place. Anyway, all right, we got to get into it. There was something big that happened this week, and we happen to have somebody very, very well placed to discuss that. Actually, two people very well placed, and that is the acquisition of Dorna Sports, or MotoGP, if you will, by Liberty Media, who owned Formula One. So now they have a controlling interest. Maddi Patterson, what is going down?
I mean, it's a great thing. It's a really good thing. I think for me, it's a great thing. If anyone watching this or listening to this was listening to the investors call, you would have noticed that there's some important conversations to be had. And those three things, as far as Liberty is concerned, are things like diversity, accessibility, having women interested in the sport, and the championship that kept getting mentioned outside of MotoGP wasn't World Superbike, wasn't Supersport 300, it wasn't Moto2 or Moto3, it was the Women's World Championship. And I said it a few weeks ago, I think when we last sort of had a pod, the reason why starting a team was really important is it's a business opportunity, and that's paid itself back very well, very quickly. As for the acquisition of Dorna, Liberty have taken a controlling stake in the business. Carmelo still is Carmelo and has, I think it's about 14% of the business. And there would have been a few people overnight who became very wealthy on the back of that investment. What I think
Tapas for everyone.
Yeah, well, yeah. I think from a business standpoint, I kind of suspect that Liberty have been after MotoGP for a very long time. There was conversations about, the European monopoly. Can Liberty own two of the same product? Well, now essentially very similar products. Dorna has both World Superbike and MotoGP, so this isn't anywhere near as similar as it was in 2006 when F1 tried to acquire MotoGP in the past. We're in a very different position now, and I expect to see MotoGP become a registered business in, what's that state called in the US? It has like a super low tax rate, and everyone's registered
Texas
there.
is one. Florida has no state tax. I believe Texas might not also, so it could be.
So it'll be interesting to see what happens next, which is obviously a monopoly on the monopoly itself. I can only see this as a good thing. I know that a lot of moto fans hate Formula One, and they hate what's happened with Formula One. A lot of fans of Formula One think, it's just become a TV drama, and that's all it really is. Not everyone's going to like what I have to say, but Formula One's always been a boring sport, and it's still a boring sport. So to make people care about a boring sport off the track is very impressive. It's long-winded, and you know who's going to win within the first 3 laps. It's kind of, and to a degree, we have something similar in our sport now with the aero and technology. We kind of know who's going to be at the front every race, but then it surprises us every week. The racing, from 3 back also unfolds and is spectacular. So I think given what Liberty's done with Formula One, which has made it interesting to a whole new audience, which these long-term fans hate, and often you'll see long-term fans really hate a particular subset of a new and fresh audience because they don't understand. They don't have to. They enjoy it. And, supply and demand. If the tickets are expensive, that's not actually Liberty's doing. That's tracks going, we have a moment to make money. And I always say people will spend money on what they see value in. And the fact that Liberty sees value in this only means that if they build it out to the same degree that Formula One has now been built out to, fans, new fans, old fans, if they see value in our sport, they'll continue to pay €300 a weekend. It doesn't sound like it. It doesn't sound like that's fair, but attracting new audiences with the money to do that once or twice a year in each country is huge. For supply and demand, I think the other thing about Liberty's acquisition is this was on the books for a very long time. As someone who used to work in events and used to work for the world's largest event business, a lot of the time, the way that we would manage our events is by making ours the best in show, almost devaluing all of our competition and then going out and buying them, which to a degree is what has happened to Dorna. They haven't been able to maintain sort of that crowd attraction the way that Formula One has been able to grow it and sort of compete with Formula One. And a lot of people who go to Formula One don't necessarily know all the rules, and they don't have to. They enjoy it. And that's the key thing. So what Liberty's been able to do is almost devalue Dorna to a degree and buy it for the price they wanted, which is pretty spectacular. And I also have to say, to Dorna's credit, they do have a lot of infrastructure. It's just not well built. So this is Liberty coming in and making that infrastructure work now. So it's going to be an interesting 12 months ahead of us, I think.
Yeah, and what's interesting, as your husband Simon adroitly pointed out, MotoGP was in the same situation as an undervalued asset that the UFC was in back. It was several years ago now. It was purchased. The Fertitta family sold it to Ari Emanuel, WME, IMG for $4 billion. Just like, I think it was $4.2 billion as they bought MotoGP. And now, along with WWE, it's a $21 billion asset. So, Kayla, what were your thoughts when you heard it? What are you thinking? What positives, negatives? I'm for it, but go ahead. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that's been in the talks for a while now, so I wasn't very surprised when I heard they sealed the deal. I think it could be big. When you look at it from an outside perspective, and as someone who wants the sport to continue to grow, I'm walking into a mall and I'm finding F1 shirts everywhere, and this is something that's just started to occur in the last few years. We start to see this being built. And it's more than just F1 now. It's a brand. It's, like people actually care about it. You know, they care about the drivers, and that's really the biggest thing. They care about the drivers more than the racing, but still, it's attracting new people, and it's attracting people, putting eyes on that sport. So if F1 can do, and their partners, obviously the umbrella of people looking over it, overseeing it, if they can make MotoGP as big as that, I think it could be huge. I mean, I don't really see any downside to it. I just think, you know, we have to kind of make sure it doesn't, you know, get to the point where we're having one person win every single race. That's really the only thing. But I don't think that'll ever happen in MotoGP. You know, I think it'll be that takeover. You know, when you look at Marquez in 2018, 2019, he's winning almost every single race because of obviously being the fastest rider, but also a very good bike, blah, 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 going on. But I'm talking more of like having these huge separations in grid where you have basically Red Bull Racing and F1 just being absolutely perfect. And we're seeing cracks in that now more, but still, yeah, that's I think it's a good thing for sure.
Yeah, I don't think you know, and even in MotoGP with that one manufacturer, we kind of have a pretty good idea that I think I think I did the calculations at the end of last season. They took 86% of the podiums, 1, 2, or 3. But we don't know which one of those riders necessarily. You know, it could, because we had, you know, what's his name win a couple of races, Fabio Quartararo. We had obviously Jorge Martin, and then what's his name? Marco Bezzecchi. Yeah, the Paisana. Yeah. And so there were quite a few other winners, which was nice. But now hopefully KTM will be able to crack that this year, and obviously already Aprilia did. And it's so funny. I gotta share this tweet with you. Somebody has basically on their screen, it's one of the motorcycle profiles on Twitter, and basically their cat, you see Maverick Vinales coming around that turn, and the cat goes like this, and then he falls off. It's so funny. She's like, I think my cat is responsible for Maverick's gearbox seizing up. So it was so funny. But no, my take is I love it. I think it's a great idea. And the UFC was very similar. There were a lot of fans who were kind of like, you know, didn't necessarily want it to grow. It was sort of more like a holistic sport. And I think this is great. And I think it's going to lead to higher rider salaries and more attention, all these sorts of things. And what I'm envisioning is something that would be like a international version of what Daytona is. Daytona isn't a points race, you know, for like those competitors like Josh and others that were in there. And it would be something like where you would have a pre-season race where it would just be MotoGP and F1. And like you'd run the F1 race first so that all their fans are in attendance. And then you run the MotoGP race just after that and do something like that. And I think
you run MotoGP first. Run MotoGP first. More interesting.
Well, whichever one you want to do, because some people might say, well, I'll come late. You know, I'll come late if I know that F1's going to be on. But if F1's on and I'm already in my seat and then the motorcycles are coming out, well, I'm already here. So it's kind of like the idea between the warm-up band and then the band that's the headliner. And I think if you do something like that, it's to get people to the idea, if you love racing, this is some of the most amazing racing on the planet. And it doesn't matter if you own a motorcycle. Maddi doesn't own a motorcycle, but she loves motorcycle racing. And that's the point, is that I could tell you really quickly. I remember going to a gym one day, and a guy pulls up on a bagger, and we started talking about MotoAmerica. And he said, yeah, he goes, I like the bagger stuff. He says, but Superbike, I'm not as much into it because, of course, the bike can do that. It's like, yeah, no, it's not the bike can do it. If they can make it do it. Because you could take myself or a club racer and get on Jake Gagne's bike. We're not going to make a lap time with it. So it's not, you know, just think, well, I can only watch this because I drive a car. Or I'm just going to watch bagger because I ride a bagger. But all these other amazing things these riders and all these other classes are doing, it's a motorcycle. That's really all that matters.
I think the other, I agree with you totally, but I think the other key point to remember with this is that we're talking about different sports. So like Formula One is actually not comparable to MotoGP in terms of sport. Most car fans will tell you that bike fans are freaking crazy, man. And that's okay because it's accurate. It is true.
It's an extreme sport, yeah.
It is an extreme sport. Formula One is also a very physical sport as well. But the way that the sport unfolds is entirely different and the expectation is entirely different. When we're talking about motorcycling as a whole, as this ecosystem, let's not forget the modern Grand Prix era started 75 years ago at the Isle of Man TT. Let's really think about how modern day GPs have occurred. There's so much history in it, which is also broken off into these other verticals of the sport. So when we're talking about MotoG in particular, I think my roadmap of events is telling me that 3 years from now, the Women's World Championship will be absorbed into the MotoGP paddock, and that World Superbike will be sold as a standalone competition, which is not a bad thing at all. I think the way that MotoGP and World Superbike work right now is actually pretty atrocious, because World Superbike shouldn't be the retirement village for motorcycle riders, and equally it shouldn't be the runner-up because you don't have the extra 100,000 to do a CEV Moto2 season, which is kind of it's at that waypoint now, and we're seeing World Superbike develop into really interesting racing for the first time in about a decade. And World Superbike lost that funding, it lost that interest because MotoGP got really interesting from about 2001. But the interest grew in it, and then it sort of started to dip down past 2015 again, which is natural. So if we're looking at the sports, we can see that it's every 10 years there's a growth period, then it flatlines, it might duck down, and it grows again. This is quite common with most sports. It's really hard to keep consistent fans growing. So when we're looking at what Liberty's done again, it's the fact that, they're starting to flatline now as well. Their interest isn't growing anymore. It's kind of peaked. And what they'll be looking to do is definitely look at new ways of working again. The general rule of thumb is that once you achieve the new way, you keep looking for a new one because nothing stays the same. So I think 3 years from now, I think again, the space will look different, because I really think World Superbike will be poised to be sold for a figure amount. And will break away on its own in a unique space. And not everyone's going to like that. People are going to complain about that. They're going to hate that. But it's the best thing that can happen because it's allowing for growth of unique sports. If we look at motorcycling, the ecosystem is so unique. Generally, when we look at car drivers, there's a lot of crossover. A lot of people go from places like EWC into British touring. There's a lot that can unfold. You can be a singular person and compete in multiple championships in your career. Whereas motorcycling, you can be a World Superbike rider, a MotoGP rider, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're both. Generally, those guys don't race things like TT, which again, roads is a unique sport. Then you've got off-roading and endurance and enduro and all of these different verticals that revolve around two wheels. So Liberty kind of owning the prototype space is huge because it means that World Superbike will rebrand and grow out on its own again. And we're starting to see that in Superbike now, given how interesting it is to watch.
Yeah, it'll definitely have it needs to be its own branch on the tree of motorcycle racing. And I think to a degree, stitching back to MotoGP and F1 is there will be some sort of a socialization and evolution that takes place. If I think back to the early 2000s, my favorite senator, John McCain, called the UFC human cockfighting, and it was only on pay-per-views that they ran. It wasn't on TV. Now, it's a mainstream sport, and it's on ESPN just like F1 is. So there will be an evolution of car fans realizing that MotoGP is not the synonym of synonymous with the human cockfighting of racing, even though these guys tend to sometimes go flying down the track off the motorcycle, that it's legitimate racing, and there just needs to be a socialization, and I think that'll take place. But Kayla, let us move on to one of your buddies that you talked to when you were at COTA last time. Fabio Quartararo has decided to stay with Yamaha. Are you surprised? What do you think of the move? What's your take, my friend?
I think, it's hard for me to say because honestly, I don't know much about their relationship outside of what I can see from the outside. You know, you hear things, but you never really know a situation unless you are in it or you know the person that's in it. So, you know, for me, it shows that Yamaha is building, and he's very confident that they're going to continue to supply him a good bike, and make the strides needed. Um, I mean, what was it, a 1 or 2 year deal?
I think it was 2, but Maddi may be able to confirm. Was it 2?
25, 26, yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So, yeah, I mean, that shows that he's willing to go another 2 years of possibly being on the back of the field with these guys to continue to develop this bike. But honestly, I think I'm feeling that the Japanese manufacturers are going to start caring again, which is going to put those bikes to the front of the grid, whatever that means and however long that will take. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, you know, he's a world champion. He's one of the fastest out there, and he's going to make it happen the way he's going. You know, he always has, salvaging results, but also using the tools that he has to do the best he can. So I wasn't really surprised by his move. I mean, he's been pretty loyal to Yamaha, and he's been on Yamaha since he started in the championship. So, yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens in the next few years. But I wasn't expecting to see him move to Ducati or KTM or anything like that.
Maddi, what was your thoughts when you heard the news? What's your thoughts?
Look, to me, it actually all comes back to Liberty, to some degree. And people will say, oh, it makes total sense, right? Because you actually, as a rider, it's nice to show loyalty to a factory who's been there for you for 6 years. But to a degree, we know how Yamaha works, right? Generally speaking, most people feel like a customer of Yamaha, and Yamaha are in a really unique position again. 3 years from now, Yamaha's going to have a standalone competition in the MotoGP paddock potentially. That's huge for them. So they're actually in this stage of rebuilding their brand to be seen as a place that is about change, a place that is reliable. We don't just treat our satellites and our standalone competitions like customers. We care about our people. I imagine the amount offered to Fabio would be huge. But I also know that Fabio is not an idiot, and being the centerfold of a documentary series that is going to happen, because we know that that's most likely to happen now, being sort of the thing that people watch in that series as someone who's likable, someone who's a world champion, someone who's suffering, and watching this factory rebuild itself is huge. And we don't get that kind of access to Yamaha. So I imagine that there would have been several conversations that played into his, choice to do this again. Equally, I think, we heard factories like Aprilia saying, if he wants to come, he's going to come to us. And that was very much a matter of them poking the bear. We were told that directly by Aprilia to try and swirl some rumors to see what, and that's, that's part and parcel of the ecosystem. And I think in terms of a cash advance, is he going to be world champion if he goes to Aprilia? Probably not. But the reality is, if you stick with Yamaha and the cash is that pumps into that factory, your likelihood is much higher. And Fabio is the kind of rider, and I've heard him say it many times before, where it's not just the bike, it's me. So this is a mentality game. This is a factory creating better machinery, and he's quite like Mark in that sense. He'll push himself to the very brink of existence to get that bike to where it needs to go, which is ultimately what killed Mark's spirit in the last couple of years, which is why he's happy at Ducati. He's having a great time at Gresini in a non-factory team, taking a pay cut because it's better for his soul. Where on the other hand, Fabio's positioned himself knowing that this factory is about to grow and grow exponentially. And as I've said, I think I said it a few weeks ago, the J class really, really matters. Japanese factories to this championship really matter. I think the idea of discrediting them or cutting them out because they're not as good as they used to be compared to European manufacturers is the wrong attitude, because this entire industry, motorcycling as a whole, depends on Japanese manufacturing. So it's an interesting time. He's made the right choice. for sure. And I actually think that he's got 2 better seasons ahead of him than we're assuming. And, you know, if we look at his stats already, like they've improved on last year, race 1 and race 2. It's not great, but to be a few places up the ladder makes the difference. It makes you feel a little bit better about your job. And I think we'll see that continue. I think that growth will happen. And I also don't think Yamaha have a choice.
Sorry. Go ahead, ma'am.
For just like an outside thing, because I don't know much about, you know, obviously the parent company coming in, but kind of alluding to this championship coming into MotoGP as possibly the Women's World Championship, you know, being that we're trying to create a place for women to be seen and be up, where do you think that'll filter into after? You know, I'm assuming it'll be an R7, just by that, or maybe even a prototype that's smaller. But do you see this going into possibly Moto3 offers, or is it kind of on a different level?
So from a business standpoint, right, I have to say this. I think if you didn't look, like I said last fortnight, if you didn't look at the Women's World Championship as a business opportunity and a bit of strategy, big mistake now. And I know that there are a few people going, shit, I could have had 2 grid spots, 2 talented riders, and I could have paid for it at a pretty good price to start building out this story. So when on a personal level, when I think about what we're doing, we're building out that story. And that's really important. I think it'll be about a 3-year contract that Yamaha have with World Superbike, right?
With World Superbike or with? Gotcha.
To run that
with the Women's Championship.
In the Women's Championship. So by the time that championship reaches its expiration date for renewal, I think what you'll see is an offer from either Yamaha Racing to run that in MotoGP, because that will be the conversation, the same way the F1 Academy runs now. And I think secondly, the lessons that have been learned from F1 Academy will be applied. They'll be
back.
will be applied here, because we really don't want this to fail, which is why it's been so quiet. So on the Yamaha front, I think as a larger business, they're looking at creating and being the manufacturer, right? And over the next 3 years of this championship in the World Superbike paddock, we will see other team owners come forward and go, shit, I need a team in this. And I don't know why I didn't do it from the start, right? But, you know, sometimes you've just got to take a gamble.
Yeah.
Visionary. She's a visionary.
Visionary.
Maddi, are you one of those people, you're walking down the street in Rome and you just go, oh, Simon, let's go in there. I think the food's going to be good. And then you go in and you're like, oh, man, the salad's amazing. And the starters.
Yeah. That's me. That's me as a person.
You're that person.
But,
Okay.
but you know what? I'm a risk taker, because the worst thing that's going to happen is someone's going to say no. Or like, what? God forbid we win something. But back to the point. So on the business front, Yamaha are looking to sort of place themselves for the modern era, which is not something that they've done before. If we look at their competitors like Honda, they're already well placed for that, because they have feeder programs into British Talent Cup, CEV Moto2, directly into Red Bull Rookies Cup, Moto3. They're involved heavily, even though I think Red Bull Rookies is a KTM. KTM, but Alberto Puig is heavily involved in that as well. So they've got people in the right place to find talent and development. If we actually look at Honda in the MotoGP paddock right now, Leopold Racing in Moto2 are pushing Moto3 teams to please get back on board with Honda. Let's build out this team. So there's a massive push for this factory to come back to former glory. And Yamaha's sitting there going, what do we do? What do we do? So there is a much bigger picture outside of Fabio, but Fabio staying shows brand loyalty. It shows commitment to the future. And as for Fabio, as I said, he knows that he's about to make bang out of the factory, out of potentially winning races, and also being the star of his own show, which is all about everything we just spoke about, growing that brand back out to its glory, because it is a glory brand. More than that, it's an accessible brand that, 80 or 90% of people who ride motorcycles ride. We think about Honda, Yamaha, especially in Southeast Asia, which is their home. And they want to keep selling motorcycles. And the best way to do that is by showing how great they are to ride. What better platform than racing?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I was thinking more of like on a racer perspective, like for me, because I've never gone into a championship with only women, and I've always been, you know, we all know that this is not a I guess a women's sport. It's a male dominated sport, and we all
Yeah.
know that. Um, so, obviously it's always been that way for me. You see the championships in, Italy, they have the women's championship there, which I've, heard about and have even gotten offers to go over and do one-off races and things. But as a racer, looking at the future of women's racing, um, I feel almost conflicted at some point
Yeah.
because I don't know which way will be good because I want it
I get
to
that.
be what I'm thinking and I want it to be, which is giving girls a platform to go into Moto 3 and go into, World Supersport 300, go into these categories.
Yeah.
But I'm afraid, at the same time, I'm afraid that it's going to be restricted to that. And
I get that.
we'll get to the point, you'll get to the point where I've had people reach out to me from very good teams, like teams that I know really well, but they want me to just do women's championship. And it's
Yeah.
a little frightening because I'm like, when I get to that point, am I going to be told, maybe just go to the women's championship instead of continuing to go up?
And this is why, and I get it completely because that's where I
Yeah.
stand. That's exactly where I stand. So people might say to me, it's just women's racing, it's fine, it doesn't even matter. Like, oh my god, run your little girls team. And I'm sitting there like, okay, again, big picture, you're not seeing it, that's a good thing. You're not my target audience. When I think about you from a racer's perspective, I get it completely. So what, again, if it comes back to being integrated into the MotoGP system, we have to think about this sport as a whole. I personally find Moto E incredibly interesting. That's a damn heavy bike and good racing. Moto 3, Moto 2, MotoGP. If we think about the R7 as it is, the R7 is heavier than a MotoGP bike. I don't know
Is
how I
it?
did that. Oh, I did a thing. Yeah,
Oh my goodness.
it's heavier than a MotoGP bike. So all
Wow.
this bull crap. Okay, people standing on stage saying they can't race MotoGP. I'm like, bitch, it's heavier. It's a big ass bike. It is a big ass bike. Shut up. Shut up. You mind your business with your little like 600 that you ride around the backyard. Mind your business. Sorry, I know I'm getting an attitude right now, but these are real things. So every time somebody says to you, "Oh, well, it's just girls racing. It's just this." Again, it comes back to this Liberty acquisition, which is they've learnt so many lessons from F1 Academy. And as someone who has a vested interest in the betterment of our sport, of course, I've kept a close eye on that. And as I said, team managers and people that thought this championship was a bad idea are now regretting it because they know themselves, not even as racers, but as business owners, the opportunity is to start a team in the Women's World Championship and then go, oh, it takes about €2 million a year to run a Moto 3 team. I wonder what, I might have a conversation and see what I can do. And that is the pathway that's created. Yamaha might have the infrastructure in terms of the singular championship, but it takes visionaries, it takes people with an idea to build it out, to work together with other people in the space to create opportunities. Not to bang on, but that was always my goal from day dot. I'm like, I have lots of friends with no jobs, let's give them some. And then 10 people later, here we are with everyone employed running a team. So it's from a racer perspective, Kayla, I get it. And I think the problem is when people tell you that you're the odd one out because you're the girl against all the boys, or, well, she still has to prove herself in the bigger categories against the boys, despite the fact the bigger categories are already mixed categories. Let's not forget that. It's pressure on you, and your sex is not a conversation we've ever had. You and I talk about motorcycle racing. Your sex is the last thing. But also going into Women's World Championship and kicking ass is not a bad thing either, so long as, let's say you run a super sport bike at the same time. And that's the other thing, that doesn't happen anymore because that's so expensive to do. But back in the day, didn't Freddie Spencer win 2 world championships in the same year? Like, he jumped on one I don't know I don't remember the classes, but won 2
Yeah,
championships back to
yes.
back at the same, like, that doesn't happen anymore, not because it's not doable, but because the cost associated with it is so much and the pressure on your body is so much. Whereas in places like World Superbike, actually that shouldn't be the case. You should be able to prove diversity and do that, and then maybe kick ass in the Women's World Championship and step out of it into a championship where you can commit yourself fully.
Yeah. I mean,
I think I froze. Sorry about that.
Sorry.
yeah,
Go ahead,
exactly what you're saying is just kind of, you know how it is. It's from my perspective, I have very conflicted feelings because I think it's huge for women and being kind of that voice that it is possible and you can still be on the world stage. Like, this is not something where you're limited to. But you don't want, you look at how the W series is almost seen in some ways, and it's a little scary because I don't want that to turn into something else. And that's gotten better. That's gotten better, but still, for me, and obviously,
No, go on.
Kayla,
Sorry.
look how many girls are on the grid. Look how many girls are in the MotoAmerica grid now than when you started racing there.
Yeah. It's crazy. Like,
it's not going the other direction.
Even if it's only 3 or 4 girls in Junior Cup now. I mean, I came in Junior Cup as the only one in I think 4 or 5 years, and before that it was only 1 girl. So it was, I think it's positive. And yeah, it's hard to say because I'm so conflicted. I want to see it, but at the same time, I don't want it to limit the opportunity for me to reach a world championship from a world championship status in everyone being together. I
get that, and I don't think it will, Kayla. Like, I honestly think if you're talented enough, people who are smart enough and know how to make money off of you, right? Because let's not beat around the bush. That's how this industry works. We'll hire you to do that job. If I already had a Moto3 team and you were 18 years old, like, let's go do some CEV Moto3 testing and see how you go. And then if you're good, hell yeah, get on the bike, because that's logic. And I understand where you're coming from, because to some degree, for you've been a minority throughout this process. So you actually have a fear about what this championship will do, if it's negative or not. And that makes sense. That makes total sense because you've already had an uphill battle. But the bonus is that you're really talented. So most people are in your corner, which is great. So what the Women's World Championship has the potential to do is to keep creating that talent and actually creating a safe space for talent to grow. And it's like I always say, this championship is not about isolating women. It's about giving them a community where they feel welcome enough to go and display that talent. And motorcycling is so unique compared to something like Formula One and F1 Academy, in that, yes, it's hella expensive, but it's a hell of a lot cheaper. So actually the pathways in are far more viable. It is the potential to be involved in the sport is actually much more accessible than something like Formula One, because Formula One is very much, it was my dad's money and that's how I got in. Whereas this sport is very much reliant on, it's a grind, and my family drive me 18 hours to, like, what's that place called? Chuckwalla in the desert to ride a motorcycle. It's like, it's a totally different vibe. And I think, statistically, we've grown, I think, another 8% year on year for women and interest in this sport alone. The interest for a Women's Talent Cup was huge for a long time. And they launched for the Women's World Championship. And looking back, this launched before I ever got wind of a Liberty takeover, but it makes so much sense now as to why they did it when they did. Because it's about adding value and attracting other women, not only as athletes, but as fans to the sport, and giving them a community to display talent and feel safe and show their worth. And all of that work wouldn't have happened without people like you kicking ass 6 classes from day dot. That's just a reality. And it's the same for Mallory. you know, on my end, it's the same kettle of fish for Lizzie as well. But it's less accessible for women because we're generally told, right, from a very young age, and not necessarily from our families, because our families are generally the ones that support us, but society will tell us, okay, she's little, she might break, she's light, that's too heavy for her, that's difficult, this is too hard. So we start to believe that, whether it's true or not. So that's what this championship is for. I don't think it will prevent women from actually going further in the sport, just based on the fact that it's slightly more accessible. And the reality is people in motorcycling will make money. They want to make money. Sorry, go on, DJ.
Let me get a comment in here from the chat. I'd say women's championship should be a second option for you, Kayla. You're fast enough to fit into most paddocks. Keep following the girl off plan path that you spoke about in previous shows.
100%.
So yeah, that's another.
Speeds in my ear every day. We got a clear idea of where to go.
Yeah,
So,
and
Yeah.
honestly,
And if it's not the right
I
fit,
think
why would you
that
do it?
I think that there are other options for you like that too. Like I believe even from where you're sitting in the paddock now, I think you could get a Moto2 ride if you were to be very successful in the championship that you're in now, or if you were in World Supersport and you were successful there. I don't think there's a definite path. I realized for some riders it had seemed like that, because you could say, well, why isn't Nikola Bulaga, why is he not in Moto2 or in MotoGP? You know, that would be a legitimate question to ask. But I don't think that necessarily is going to be the case for everyone. And as Maddi said, a Moto2 team could look at this and say, this is a business decision. This is a great rider. This is a fast rider. And the fact that she's a female, that's just going to bring eyeballs to my team. Everybody in the paddock is going to be looking at my rider. And then off of that, another year or two later, I mean, you think you're 16 now. In the John Kennedy-esque sort of format, within this decade, we're going to see a woman in one of those championships. In Moto2, MotoGP, I have no doubt in this decade we're going to see that. That could be you. So I think it's going to happen. And after you, there'll be, once you go there and you're successful, there'll be another young lady right behind you that someone else will find from another country or America.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Exactly. Or potentially the Women's World Championship. No, exactly. True though.
Yeah.
Or potentially the World Championship that exists for that reason. And that's the thing. If it's not the right fit for you, why would you do it? Do the thing that's the right fit. It's just logical.
Absolutely. Matt, if you were a team owner, Maddi, in Moto, I mean, you are a team owner, but if you were a team owner in Moto2, I mean, and you had the chance to get Kayla right now, like, let's say that, you know, she's
like,
top 3 or 4 in this championship, you know, what would your stance be?
But this championship's probably, like, year 1 is probably not the right measurement that I would take.
Yeah.
So the way, honestly, from my point of view, what I would do is I would say to you, Kayla, come race for my Women's World Championship team. I'll pay you for it because that's what I do. But equally, can you race the Supersport Championship at the same time? No pressure. You're going to do both, but it's only an extra 6 races. So there's no stress, right? It sounds quite stressful, but it's going back to proving worth. And the reality is races like racing. Racers want to race. You give them a motorcycle, they're like, oh my God, yes, please. It's opportunities like that. And I would say to you, I'll pay for you to go and race in that championship alongside this one. But that's from a selfish point of view, because I like winning. And I like being able to show people that I can source talent that's capable of winning. That's just a logical thing. And I think in motorcycling, it's people are more capable of doing that than in Formula One, right? It's just, we're not going to see a woman in Formula One for, I don't freaking know how long. It's just not going to happen. But in MotoGP, actually, and World Superbike, it's going to happen much quicker. Mm-hmm. Because it's more accessible and people are open and receptive to it. We as a community, the way that this community is fostered, want to see that. That's a great thing. But if it's not the right fit, like why? It's like if you wanted to run Supersport 600, why would you run in the 300s if you want to be a 600s rider?
Right.
And that's a conversation I've already had. You know, that was one of the talks we had last year and going into this year, and even in the Women's World Championship, we had those talks as well. We had talks going to maybe even test Moto3 bikes, like all of these things, but it's all about that right place at right time, and not in the sense where I need to be lucky, but in the sense that I'm going to put myself in the best position possible to do what I want to do and also be successful in it. And that's why I think having someone like Ben in my corner is huge, because he has a clear goal in mind, and his clear goal is still wide open and can go anywhere. And that's what we're trying to build. So.
And equally,
Yeah.
the other side of
And
the
he's-
coin is like, if you want to ride a big bike, if you want to ride an R7, why does the sex of the championship matter? That's the other side of the coin. If that was a full-on championship from round 1 to round 12, would the sex matter, or does it only matter because we're women? And is that an internalized misogyny, right? Like, is that's the other question you have to ask. If you wanted to ride an R7 and go fast on a big bike, does the sex of the people you're competing against matter? So this is where all that grain gets tested, and that's why motorcycling is cool, because we can actually fish out talent now really effectively.
Let me just say one thing. As we said in our group chat, Maddi is breaking necks and cashing checks. Okay, and you just
I don't know about the checks, Vic, but
and it's coming. It's coming. I want to say thank you to 675 Dreamer for bringing up that comment. We do appreciate it. I see you guys in the chat, and I realize that Facebook, Instagram, you cannot post comments from Instagram. So if you want to interact with Maddi or Kayla, obviously come to the YouTube, and from there you can chat with us. Facebook, you have to. I put a link in there. It says StreamYard.com /Facebook.
oh,
And
that's
then
where you
from
see the comments. Oh, sorry, just playing with
and
you.
then you can, and then you can go ahead and set your, because that way it'll allow you to post as you. So, and if you're on Twitter, I don't know if you can comment here on Twitter. So if you're on Twitter or X, I know we've been forced to change it. We all fell in love with the name Twitter. Just go to our YouTube page, and then from there you can comment. What other items we have on the agenda? What exciting did you want to bring up, Kayla? Is there anything else relative to MotoAmerica? I know Greg and Jason alluded to a couple more people in your that are going to be in your class, but of course we can't release that because that might bring eyeballs. So that was Greg's comment. But anyway, go ahead.
I don't know about that one, actually. I didn't listen to their most recent podcast. I do know that there are a lot of people in the class, but if we are just going to continue to add to that, that's always a good thing. It's always good competition, so that's the goal. I've had some higher standards for myself, just based off of kind of how I feel like my performance is right now. So I hope in the next few rounds, as we continue to develop these bikes, which we made some really promising changes with, as we continue to develop these bikes, I'd like to be on the podium sooner or later. So we'll see. But that's going against superbike riders. You got, I know Scholtzy's coming down again, and obviously my teammates are both superbike riders. I'm hearing about wild cards being also superbike riders. So it's gonna be difficult, but we're gonna try the best we can. And I have some personal favorite tracks on the calendar that I know we can make something happen with.
I'm not worried about you against Scholtzy. Like I said, in the hair battle, you've got him. Maybe you got to get a pair of sunglasses that might match his. Get the
got it covered.
Jake Dixon style, something like that. But also, I want to stitch back real quick because we're gonna end the show here in about 5 minutes. We're getting close to the end, but I wanted to say something about Fabio. I really appreciate what he did. I kind of thought he was going to Aprilia. I was wrong, but I totally understand and respect his decision. He hasn't sort of piled up the years of revenue that Marc Marquez has, although at one point I know he was the second highest paid rider, which I don't know if Pecco has made inroads into that now with his latest contract. But, security for his family over the years, and also something that you taught me about in a prior podcast, Kayla, was you talked to me about leveling in World Superbike and why that was necessary. Something that me and some of my friends of mine that are your fans did not understand. Now we understand why leveling is important. And this opportunity for Yamaha in 2027, where everybody's building this 850cc purported engine with a 75 millimeter bore, that's going to be a bit of a leveling there, because now they have an opportunity to build a new engine along with everybody else that's going to have a new engine, and it will be as tested in theory as their engine is. So I think, you got to respect his choice. I mean, we can't tell someone, hey, turn down money and go to a more competitive bike like Mark did. We can't say that. So Fabio, rock on, brother. You're brilliant. You speak how many? 4 languages, Maddi? Does he speak Portuguese too?
Yeah, Italian, Spanish, French, and English.
I know. Amazing. What a smart kid.
He's such a good dude. He is. I am pleased for him. I think it was the right choice.
Yep. And if the bottom line is, even if we thought it was the wrong choice, it was the right choice for him.
Yeah.
Because we don't know the calculus that went into him making his decision. A fan might just say, hey, you should go to a more competitive bike. Yeah. His kids might be going to college, secondary school and college based on the decisions he's making now, and maybe their kids. So rock on, Fabio. Let's have some parting shots, beginning with Kayla.
Yeah, just kind of throw out things, I guess. We got Road Atlanta coming up in the next few weeks, April 19th to 21st, one of my favorite tracks. Got a trophy back there from Road Atlanta where should have won that race, but ended up getting demoted. So,
but you won that race.
But good bad memories there. So hopefully we can try to replicate some of that race aside from the penalty. And yeah, good things going, good vibes up until that race. There should be some new partnerships with the team that are going to be really exciting and super good for the sport coming up soon. So definitely stay tuned to all the Rahal-Ducati Moto stuff. And I'm excited to see racing over the next few weeks. Obviously, the Women's World Championships about to get going, and as well as
I don't want to talk about it.
I don't want to give you a timeline because I know that's going to stress you out more.
I don't want to talk about it.
But yeah, we got American Mallory Dawson that, so be sure to tune into that because that's going to be really cool to see. She's a really good girl, and she's I've talked to her a couple of times, and I think she can do some good stuff there. But anyways, watch MotoAmerica. Be sure to watch Super Sport this year. It's going to be insane. And yeah, that's a big thing.
Stop if you're at Road Atlanta in Brazelton there, Georgia. Stop by Kayla's tent. I will probably be talking UFOs with Dave Yakov, who's a big fan of UFOs and an experiencer himself. And so I'm really looking forward to that. And next weekend, I'm going to get to meet Maddi and Simon at COTA.
Woo!
So, and probably have some sort of what I'm going to do based on what she said earlier in her visionary is I'm going to just stand there, me and Katiani, and watch what food truck she goes to. And I'm going to be, Kati over there, go to the truck she's going to. The one with the barbecue sliders.
No, it's going to be so I'm like a total sad sack for prawn tacos, or what do you call it? Shrimp tacos. That's my happy food. I love that so much. So I think there's a shrimp taco place in Austin that I want to go to desperately. So I'm like, oh my god, yay! I love Austin. It's my favorite race of the year. I can't wait.
I will do some research on that. I also, my wife, whose name is Katiani, we used to call her Shrimpiani because she loves shrimp so much. So we will endeavor to find that shrimp. Is it a food truck or a brick and mortar?
Do you know what? So we're having like a catch up in Austin with everyone. Let me find the details for you for those watching and listening.
Sure.
If you want to, if anybody wants to abuse me, please don't. I will cry. I'm in a very fragile state, so please don't come to fight with me. So dinner with friends at COTA. It is Saturday the 13th of April at 7:30 at Mueller Austin at 4209 Airport Boulevard, Austin. So it's like a food truck hangout. They've got lots of different trucks and things, and we've got so many friends in Austin. I just thought, like, why don't we do a little dinner date with beers and tacos? So if anyone's around, please join us. I'm really looking forward to Austin. So
this is a great idea. I will be there. You will get to meet Maddi, the new Segment Racing International team principal.
Mallory's coming as well.
Simon, one of the most incredible journalists in MotoGP. He has no fear to say whatever is on his mind.
Yep.
I won't say the next words I was going to say about someone who said something bad about him that pisses me off. So we'll just leave that. But he's a fantastic journalist.
Don't listen.
Yeah.
Do you know what?
I'll tell you on the side.
Oh, you know what? Honestly, it's okay. It's fine because everyone's entitled to their own opinion. But I think it actually, you know, to have an opinion and stick to it, that you can't discredit for someone that, like, at least he can do that fully. Yeah. And also he's capable of learning, which is a big thing as well. But nonetheless, Austin, come and see us there.
Yes, he's an amazing journalist and interviewer, by the way. If you see his interview with Marc Marquez and the interview he did with Pedro Acosta, will tell you that he is one of the most interesting dudes who has an old soul like Simon has, where he has thoughts that sort of belie his age, if you will. So you and him definitely gotta hang out too, Kayla. So, Pedro.
Are you coming to? So wait, when's Road to Atlanta? Is that this coming weekend?
It's the weekend after COTA.
So, it's the weekend after.
Oh. Are you coming to COTA?
I don't think so. I think we're testing that weekend. But
no. Tell Ben to come to COTA. I want to see Ben. Tell him to come to COTA.
Yeah, I mean that's where I don't know if I think I told the story last time, but that's where I met him. Yeah, and I didn't recognize him at first and like totally went over my head. But yeah, it'll be I think the weekend before Atlanta, and I might be testing. But if we're not, might as well come out. Oh, actually, I'll be in Texas on the No, it might be Tuesday, but I'll see. I'll try to make something happen.
Come along. It'll be fun. It'll be worth it. Mallory will be there as well, by the way. Just anybody wants to see some other MotoAmerica fans.
Mallory Dobbs from Washington's own, one of my favorite states. And Ben Spees, one of the coolest Indiana accents you're going to hear. If any of you want to know what does an Indiana accent sound like, it's Ben Spees. So, and I love it.
I love it. Dude, he was talking about Niccolo Bulega, and he's like, Niccolo Bulega. I'm like, oh my god. I'm like, I love him so much. It's so awesome. And there was this old ad. I forget what it was for. It was some Italian company, and they were going to all the MotoGP riders, and they were having them speak in Italian, just like short phrases. And him and Nikki were like, "Uno momento," like just going off. I loved it.
Per favore.
It was awesome.
Time. Accents in the U.S. Do you know how it like? Okay, like I'm sorry, but obviously I impersonate my friends because their accents are all so different, and I just love the US because every state is like its own country. The accent is different. The type of barbecue. I'm very across North Carolina. I am a big vinaigrette barbecue girl, but I'm constantly told by people in Louisiana that that's wrong. So like the barbecue culture, the language culture, the accent. I'm just having a great time. I'm like, oh, I can't wait to go to Austin and say y'all. Hi, y'all. Oh, it's so much fun. I love the
Texas.
US. Right.
It's the brisket and all that, and then in St. Louis, it's a different type of a sauce and the ribs and all that. So yeah, I'm with you. But I dig that. I dig the pulled pork, man, there in North Carolina, and the vinegar-based sauce. I like them all. Good. I mean, they're all the regional. They're all good, but yes, they will fight about it. Because they have these big barbecue competitions. You guys know that. So anyway,
I can't believe what a big deal it is. I'm learning so much every time I come here. It's my third trip here this year. I'm like, wow.
It's like me in the UK. It was a 3-year learning experience for me. So anyway, so we'll be back again after. We'll try to get these two or corral them as they're trekking across the world in one case and across the country in the other case. The amount of miles that Kayla has logged in an RV going to races, we can't calculate.
We got a newer RV like month and a half ago, 2 months ago. It already has 20,000 miles. So.
Oh my god!
Nice.
Nice. Gonna keep that going.
My Indian FTR doesn't even have 3,000 on it yet. Anyway, one question I want to ask you guys before we go. So let's take this around the horn. If you could buy 2 street bikes, we'll go to Kayla and then Maddi, and then I'll give mine. But Kayla, what is if you could have 2 street bikes, what would yours be? Like, if you could pick, they could be any vintage, it could be something that's new or old. What would you buy? Money's
I
not
would
an
say,
object.
now for nowadays, the Street Fighter like the V4s and V2s. Oh my God, I got to ride one at Jennings for coaching. I had so much fun. It was so cool. For sure one of those. And then like back in the day when we used to have like the
Retro.
Blackbirds and all that stuff. I mean, that was a pretty cool time where sport bikes,
Honda
the Super
Blackbird.
Sport at the time, yeah.
Okay.
Those are pretty cool, but just slap some Ducati stickers on it for me instead.
Oh, look at that. Come on, we don't. All right, Maddi, your 2 street bikes. Maybe, just whatever comes to mind.
I don't. Okay, well, mine's like, because I'm more of like a what do you call it? Memorabilia person. So like, if I had the choice
Retro.
of 2 bikes I'd have in my house, like just
Mhm.
important bikes to history, I'd have like Robert Dunlop's 1989 Macau Honda, like winning
Ooh,
Honda. That's like
okay.
the green machine. That's like a PG O'Kane racing machine. I'd have that for sure. I think it was like a Honda RC30.
RC30,
And
yeah.
yeah, that's like just number one. I'd have that in my house.
Yep.
It's currently in the
Cool looking
Macanese
bike.
Motorcycle Museum. And the other one, I feel like just because he's like my spirit animal and my soul, and I love him to death, I'd have like Matt Oxley's TT winning bike, which was a Honda. It doesn't
was
exist
a
anymore.
Honda,
Nobody knows
okay.
what happened to it, but I would have that in my house. But like that, I'm a memorabilia girl. I'd want that, and then be like, yeah, that was Matt Oxley's. Like, ooh.
I'm gonna go honorable mention on one of Matt Oxley's bikes too, but I'm gonna go. So for my retro bike, actually both of them are retro. The Kawasaki Triple, the H2 750 2-stroke
Nice.
triple with maybe like the little Roadrunner emblem on there. I have always wanted those bikes. I've ridden the 350 version, the S2, but never the H2, which is the monster, the kind of the Widowmaker of street bikes. I would love to have that bike. Second of all, I'm thinking like I'm going to go way back to if you guys heard of Lawrence of Arabia, T.E. Lawrence had that Brough Superior SS100. And this early, I don't know if it's like a 1930s bike, and they had to do 100 miles an hour coming out of the factory. If you could imagine on those brakes, those drum brakes doing 100 miles an hour, it would probably take you half a mile to stop. So that would be it. And honorable mention, I had a bike very similar to Matt's, but he talks about like that. It's like a RZ 350, the water-cooled version of that bike.
Yeah.
With it, and it has kind of like the little cowl, the small cowl fairing. I would love that. I've never had the water-cooled version, but I've had the 350 and the 250. I would love to have that bike that Oxley posts about. So anyway, that's enough. Think about your fantasy bike. Come join us next time. Hopefully we can corral these 2 ladies. I am DJ at Call All Beings. As you can see, you can find me talking UFOs, Bigfoot, and paranormal at Calling Beings is the show. Twitter, and you can find us on YouTube. Getting busy. We're going to have a big roundtable tomorrow. We're having England, Ireland, Scotland, and Wales. So we're having representatives from each of those, including Daniel Barnett, who's a 14-year-old author from the UK, and he's a Bigfoot guy. So we're gonna have Daniel with all these UFO people. So it should be a lot of fun. Thank you very much. We got to say goodbye. So say goodbye to the audience, Maddi and Kayla.
See you at COTA.
See you guys next time. Yep.
We'll see you at COTA. This is DJ. Peace out. One love, and we'll see you down the road. Look around those corners. All right. All right.